Good afternoon, Rich.
Good afternoon, Rob.
So, while we're waiting for people to join the actual show to begin, I was up yesterday in the Wisconsin Dells, and I came very close to spending, the afternoon at the Kalahari Water Park, but I opted out of that. I think because it's closed. But one of the things that a couple of people have mentioned to me is we need to do a better job of answering questions that pop up in our box. And sometimes if I'm outside, I can't see them so well. So, and also addressing the chat items. So I think we should try to do that a little bit more going forward.
Yeah, it's good advice. We try to get to it, but so sometimes we got a guest and the questions aren't relevant always, but yeah, it's good to have feedback, honestly. In fact, anybody watches this thing is amazing. So
right. Yeah, Sandra Thompson's on. Somebody's asking about some HUD program, or
Right. You gotta balance it a little, but in general, you're right. We have not done as good of a job as usual in getting to all that. So
I will say that I continue to receive nice Andrew Young. Well, Andrew, I am in Chicago, Illinois. And I was telling Amy before the show I was gonna head over to Gino's East Pizzeria and do the show from the second floor of Gino's East, because the walls are all black and people have written things, in pen on all the walls, usually in white ink, however that works. But it's raining, and so I did not head over there. So you're stuck with kind of a plain background, although the view's nice.
yeah, you got a nice view out the window there.
I could swing the camera around. Anybody who's afraid of heights probably might not like that.
Probably should have set up in front of that window, huh?
What's that?
Should have set up in front of that window. Aren't your production people traveling with you?
Then it would be the witness protection dark profile, because it is relatively light outside compared to in here. So yeah, I don't have the lighting guy with me today. But anyway, I was up in the Wisconsin Dells, the Wisconsin Mortgage Bankers, and it was a good meeting, good little conference. We had an FBI agent, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work so well. And I think that yesterday, to be frank, could have worked a little bit better. It was pretty dry, but she did tell some tales about mortgage fraud that were interesting. We also had Kirk Willison from Arch delivering a speech about the upcoming election, and some good speakers that were there, and the attendance was solid. So it's a nice bunch of people there.
I heard a lot of the chatter was about the Cavs 6-1 start, Warriors at 3-4 was a lot of the topic in the hallways of that event. So Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
Real deal. So
go Warriors.
Happy Friday, everyone. Rich Swerbinski with the Mortgage Collaborative here.
So I'm sorry, Rich, go ahead. We've already got a question I was going to address.
You're so eager to address our criticism that we're not responsive enough. So you want to address the question right out of the gate here?
Well, I just glanced at it. There's something about the loan amounts. I know that when Sandra Thompson, well, let's go back a ways. People should know that the conventional conforming loan limits generally come out right around Thanksgiving, maybe a few days before, maybe a few days after, but that's Thanksgiving. And last year, United Wholesale took the unmitigated, unparalleled, unprecedented step of announcing their own loan limits, given what they had seen in the marketplace and given the metrics that the FHFA uses to set loan limits. So they took that and extrapolated and put in their own and so forth, which I guess worked out okay. This year, and then last year, other companies did as well because they wanted to be competitive. This year, the same thing happened. They came out And unfortunately for UWM and others, they may have jumped the gun. And so several have backstepped, retraced their steps. For example, PennyMac reduced what they initially had gone out with. I don't know if United Wholesale has done the same thing or not, but I think it's important for people to know that we're not in some kind of free fall by any stretch of the imagination. After 20% in 2020 and 20% again in 2021, I don't think anybody's surprised that we see a little bit of retracement at those kind of levels. So, but yeah, the FHFA will come out in a couple of weeks with that information. And Sandra Thompson at the TMC event, she maintained her composure and tact, and said, well, sometimes I kind of feel like just leaving loan limits alone, because I have the right to do that, and basically hanging out to dry anybody who raised their loan limits. I don't think she'll do that. But yeah, I think they've been scaling that back, to Matt's question. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't jump up as much as people had thought, a month or two ago.
We'll see what happens. It should be getting it soon, but yeah, what Sandra's comments were funny about, her thoughts on lenders that jumped the gun on that, and it was pretty funny and honest. So, but happy Friday, everyone. Rich Swerbinsky with the Mortgage Collaborative here, once again with the rundown with Rob and Rich, where we take you into the weekend by running through the week that was in the mortgage industry. And, as has been the case this year, Rob, we kind of got the mortgage industry, on the sidelines, it reminds me of the guy in the hockey penalty box that's got 20 seconds left, in a big game tied, come on, let me, I'm ready. But we're just kind of waiting and watching, and, it's all really the interest rate climate and Federal Reserve policy and all these huge economic indicators. Got another big one this morning. The October jobs report, like a lot of these big economic numbers, you can find something, everybody can find something they like in it. The headline number, you see, okay, the unemployment rate went up from 3.5 to 3.7%. On the surface, you would think, okay, this is what the Biden administration wants. This is what Jerome Powell wants, stick the landing, slow down labor growth. A closer look inside the number, you see 261,000 new jobs in October versus expectations of 200,000. You see wage growth, again, month to month, 0.4%, and about 5% year over year. Outside of housing, which has been a huge drag on jobs, and technology, which has been a huge drag on jobs, pretty much every other sector of employment up. Companies continuing to hire, obviously a big CPI number next week, the midterm elections next week. And it's funny because you got the Biden administration out this morning in the heels of the election, trumpeting the report and the job growth, even though they want less jobs. And then the Republicans are out there just slamming that's the worst report of the year and wage growth wasn't high enough. So, and so it goes with 2022. My year in review column this year, I'm just going to have to make it really I'm going to have to do some drinking when I write that thing.
Well, why wait until that to do drinking? I'll tell you, when you look at anything, so I used to call my parents, if I would call my parents and say, hey, I bought a new car. It was never the right car or the color, oh, you got white? Why'd you get white? Or you got a manual? Why don't you want an automatic? Or is there enough trunk? I mean, there's so many different ways to look at something. So if you say, hey, Rob, I just got a job. And I said, wow, were you looking? Well, no, it just came. So, you weren't registered as looking for a job. What's the salary like? Oh, it's, 50,000 a year. Well, you could have done better. It should be 60,000. Oh, well, blah, blah. I mean, you can pick apart these numbers, slice and dice, to your point, Rich, that, at the end of the day, literally, you think, all right, what impact has it really had on rates? And first of all, did the Federal Reserve, did the FOMC, they may have had this information already when they jacked their rates up by 0.75% earlier in the week. And frankly, the economy is doing okay. You know, I continue not to see signs of recession. We had the GDP number out recently, you know, a nice bounce there. I'm going to beat this to death. But you go to the airports, you know, airports are full, flights are full, parking lots are full. Downtown Chicago here, it's bustling. Go out to a bar or restaurant, it's full. And so, yeah, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. The statistics, you know, I was telling this, and now you really got me going, because I am liquored up at this point. I've been hitting sauce pretty heavy here. But I was telling the group yesterday that you can, you know, you do these things and you talk about housing and you talk about statistics and you talk about all of these, you know, all of these things that are going on out there. The fact of the matter is the economy just doesn't seem like it's in a recession. And if we do get into a recession, great, lower rates, you know. But for now, I think the economy is churning along pretty darn well. And even though we tend to look at things in our own industry saying, oh man, look at these layoffs, and look, you know, people are underemployed, they're not doing much, companies aren't making money, individuals, you know, loan officers who are making, you know, $750,000 over the last couple of years, wow, they're only making, you know, 200,000 this year or whatever it is. And so it's easy to get swayed by that, but somebody, you know, has to be around to do the $2 trillion that the NBA thinks we're going to do next year. And it's not all going to be divided among, you know, 5 companies. It's going to be, you know, there's a lot of business to be had, and people still need, you know, roofs over their head. And so it's important for people in our industry to kind of maintain a stiff upper lip. But yeah, it is pretty grim out there. But other segments of the economy, they're doing okay. They don't appear to be so recessionary. Yeah, housing prices probably not going up as much as people thought they were. Lending, you know, applications continue to be down. 6 weeks in a row, we've seen applications being down. But once again, in other parts of the economy, they're doing okay. Now, that said, I'll you know, talk out of the other side of my mouth here. There is news of layoffs, you know, Twitter layoffs, Apple, Microsoft, some of these companies, we are starting to see some layoffs, and maybe that'll help the recessionary, or I should say the interest rate picture going forward. But we're in for a, you know, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think we're in for a couple more rough quarters. And it's not going to be anytime soon where suddenly volume doubles and lending comes right back again. So it's going to be tough. And the companies that are out there are trying to cut costs enough to keep up with their decline in revenue. And that's not always easy. And that's the continued story and narrative that I'm hearing out there.
And the Fed changed its tone this week too, you know, at their policy meeting, as expected, raised rates 75 basis points, and that's baked in. Talk about this ad nauseum for months now, but threw a little bit of a curveball. I mean, basically, Powell came out and said, hey, we're thinking about slowing the pace of interest rate hikes, but we feel like the mountain that we have to climb essentially is taller than we thought. So kind of setting expectations for the market that, hey, you may see 50 basis points in December, you may see 25, but you're probably going to see more rate hikes than even we were projecting 3 or 4 months ago in totality, and kind of buckle up for a long fight. The financial markets, predictably, it bounced all around on the Fed release and the jobs number, but all in all, it was a down week, the first down week for the stock market in 5 weeks. And, you know, I think, you know, the general tone I think that's out there right now is most statistics point to, you know, a recession of some sort. And certainly a lot of smart people on record is predicting that.
Sure. You know, and I'm going to predict an expansion at some point in the future. You know, there's this old adage among economists: if you're if you're going to put a number on something in the future, don't put a date on it. If you're going to put a date on it, don't put a number on it, because you're inevitably wrong or invariably wrong. And so, yeah, at some point, may get into a recession or contraction. At some point, we'll see another expansion. At some point, rates will go up again, rates will go down again. Yeah, at some point, et cetera. What I'm continuing to see lenders do is not so much hope for lower rates, because right now it doesn't appear that rates are going to go lower anytime soon. But what I'm seeing lenders continue to do is try to help the clients that they have and try to roll out products to help those borrowers. Because I'll tell you, as everybody on this call knows, if I'm sitting there with a 2 3/4 30-year fixed rate loan, the last thing I want to do is either sell my house or refinance it. I'm going to try to figure out if I need money to buy that new, purple Sprinter, and tootle around the country, or buy a show dog and or whatever, go on a trip or pay off the kids, student loans or whatever, or maybe I could wait for the government to give those. But anyway, I digress. I'm gonna try to get cash out and not touch that great first mortgage that I have. And anybody with a mortgage now less than 5% is in pretty good shape. And so the industry is dealing with that. And so lenders are trying to figure out, okay, how can we help the clients that do come to us, because housing has become more affordable. So, let's take a look at down payment assistance programs. Let's take a look at the Housing Finance Authority programs. Let's remind our borrowers that they don't need 20% down. They can get 10% down. They can even get less. Let's look at FHA. Let's look at VA. Let's look at some of these other programs that are out there. And that's where originators are really adding value, to be able to have consultations with their clients and show them these alternatives and, like I say, add value. But yeah, there's certainly a fair amount of sticker shock that's going on out there among potential borrowers. But people were out there buying houses when rates were 15 or 18%. And I'll tell you, it's a very interesting rate environment, Rich. If you're sitting on, let's say, $10,000 of cash in your mattress right now, earning 0%, or if you had $10,000 of money, $10,000 sitting in your bank account, you can go out now and get buy a 3-month treasury security, or 6 month, or even a 2-year, whatever, and earn 4.25%, 4.5%, 4.7%. The 2-year right now is the yield is up by 4.7%. A 10-year yield is down around 4.2%. So a 3-month treasury, no risk whatsoever. If you can earn 4% on your $10,000, everybody out there who has cash in their bank account should take whatever, quote, spare cash they have and somehow get it into the treasury market, because those yields are fantastic. Now you really got me going, right? If I can earn 2% on some utility water stock, or I can earn 4.7% on a U.S. Treasury, what am I going to do? So granted, those Treasury securities don't have appreciation potential like a water stock or PepsiCo might have. But the Treasury yields you can't argue with in terms of, if you've got cash earning 0, put it to work. There's some great yields out there, and that helps with this inflation picture, because if you're earning 0 and inflation is 8, well, you're losing 8% every year. If you can at least pick up, say, 4%, half that inflation rate, why not give it a shot? So,
in that excellent example, it also speaks to some of the challenges just in the mortgage-backed security market right now. Because if you can buy a 10-year treasury or a 2-year treasury yielding something with a 4 handle with 0 credit risk and 0 payoff risk, you're going to buy a mortgage-backed security, a 7% mortgage-backed security. It's just chock full of prepaid risk and unknown credit risk. It seems good, but it kind of speaks to why you see a big spread right now between mortgage bonds and treasuries, more so than we've seen historically. And trying to boil it down to like what the people on this call likely are most concerned about is the different scenarios with interest rates, right? We've talked about a couple of these before. There's the the Fed is in over their head and they're late to the party, and we're going to get, a bad recession and continued bad inflation numbers, and rates go up to 10%, and we go into recession, and then the Fed's got to do things ultimately at some point to bring it out, which means lowering of rates and possibly more business for our industry. But then it comes with all the negative things that come with the recession. Or the Fed sticks the landing scenario where rates are probably in this 5 to 8% band bopping around. Is one of those two scenarios more likely to you than the other? I know you love predictions so much, so I got to put you on the spot for the show.
If anybody on this call is paying for some service to predict interest rates for them, save your money.
How have those predictions been this year? Yeah, I was like, that's one vendor you should renegotiate.
How are those predictions at the beginning of 2020? How they pan out? How they pan out earlier this year? A note from Amy flashed up about LO productivity. I forget your question, Rich. Not that it's not important, but I had a question for you that I've been thinking about. You deal with the Mortgage Collaborative members, soup to nuts, all these lenders that are out there. What are you seeing? Not to toot your own horn too much, but feel free to toot TMC's horn a little bit. How is TMC helping lenders right now in this kind of environment? And I wish to tell the audience, I should tell the audience, this was not a setup. Rich did not say, please ask me this so I can talk about TMC's services. But what are you seeing demand from TMC's lender members right now in terms of helping them over the next quarter or two?
Well, ultimately, the reason this organization was started was not for climates like the last 2 years, but more for climates like this and preserving the viability of the small to medium-sized mortgage lender, because that's what's in the best interest of the American consumer, and not, Matt Ishbia and Dan Gilbert doing all the loans in the country. The mortgage industry is so nuanced. There's so many third-party providers. It's so fragmented and segmented that if you really want to truly network and intimately work with other companies like our network allows to exchange successes, challenges, best practices in every single aspect of the mortgage lending industry, the cumulative impact of that for members of ours that have fully embraced that, it's off the charts. You hear the one-off examples like, oh, I came to a TMC conference and I didn't know you could do this or you couldn't do that, and it saved us $58,000 a year. But and now you get into this type of climate, we have a lot of members that haven't been as engaged. They've just been busy the last 2 years, and I get it. We're, to some, a nice to have and not a have to have, but to a lot more members this year, we're a have to have, between all the working groups and in-person sessions we do, and just connections between lenders on a daily basis. So
hey, before I forget, is your Christmas tree already up in the background there?
Not yet. I've got all the boxes though. This weekend, I'm hoping to get after it, and so you may see the Christmas decorations may enter the fray behind me for next week. So
you're like Costco. I mean, we just finished Halloween. You've already got Christmas going.
To me, Thanksgiving, it's to eat and football. Like, I'm going right to Christmas. I love like the Christmas, especially when you live in Cleveland. It starts to get gray here. The lights, the music. It just to me, it's uplifting. So
you haven't heard all those carols like 80 times too many.
Oh, no, I don't listen to any Christmas music after Christmas, but November 1 to December 25 in small doses, I can take it. So
Mariah Carey fan, are you?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're really digressing now. Where were we? We were talking about what lenders are doing out there. I'm continuing, like I said earlier, continuing to hear about cost cutting. And one of the big things that's overlooked, and I know we've mentioned this on the show before, is healthcare costs. And when companies say, hey, what about our healthcare costs? Why don't we take our plan and see where we can, tweak it a little bit, shop it around a little bit? I've heard oodles that's a technical capital markets term for those of you oodles. Oodles of savings out there when some senior management takes a look at the healthcare they're providing and acting on it. So that's kind of
Based
what
on
I'm
some
continuing
feedback from our members, we brought on a consultancy company by the name of Kieran Advisors. That's all they do is work with companies to reduce their healthcare costs. I've seen their presentation many times. It is amazing the amount of waste and the increases and all that money just going to big pharma, and most companies including in our industry just sit there and take these increases every year. There are ways to not just take it and take that big huge expense every year increase. So, but I mean, to your point, our friend Tom Lamalfa does that excellent survey twice a year at Secondary and MBA Annual. Some really, it's for those that have not seen it, and I think Rob linked it in his newsletter yesterday. It's a survey of 33 heads of very prominent mortgage lending organizations in America. Not all top 100, but a lot of top 100, the appropriate mix of like IMB and depository, some really interesting stuff in there. 22 of the 33 expected more layoffs in 2023. It was one of the things that caught my eye. Another interesting thing, 20% of all workers fully in the office full-time, 25% fully remote, 50%, like some kind of mix. And also the leaders survey didn't really expect that to change next year. So it seems like that's where we've kind of settled in as an industry, a quarter in the office, a quarter fully remote, 50% some kind of mix.
Yeah, two things. What was the name of that company again about the consulting, healthcare consulting?
Cairn Advisors, CAIRN Advisors. They're out of Austin, Texas, and get a hold of any of our members that have not talked to them yet or seen their presentation. My God, I would do so immediately.
The back to school, back to work movement came up yesterday in Wisconsin in the Dells. And I was talking to a couple of people about that from big banks, because a lot of people take their lead from, say, Goldman Sachs or US Bank or Citi or Chase or Wells, and what are they doing turning headquarters? And there's definitely a trend back toward at least senior managers coming in the majority of the time. Maybe it's 3 days out of 5 in the office. And there's definitely the feeling that from a corporate culture perspective and from a communication perspective, that it helps being in the same office space. I know that during in the last couple of years, we were all hiring. I should say the industry was hiring. And if I needed an underwriter, and the best underwriter, she was up in Anchorage, Alaska, let's get her on board because we need underwriters. Now companies are being much more selective in terms of, okay, who can come into the office, who's at least near a branch, and so forth. So I'm definitely seeing a shift back toward the office, which, frankly, a lot of commercial real estate owners are breathing a bit of a sigh of relief about. But yeah, that's definitely continues to be a topic out there about on work from home versus work from the office. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Some other interesting stuff in the report that always very well done by Tom. Not surprising, he's a Clevelander, so not surprising he puts together such a quality survey. Some other stuff in the news, Rob, loosely followed by the rundown, just because we don't think like the whole Fannie Freddie shareholders versus FHFA lawsuit. If there were to be a surprise and they were to win that lawsuit, it's worth mentioning because it would turn our industry on its head. Most don't expect it to happen, but it's sitting in the Supreme Court right now. I don't know if you've been following that at all.
I have not been. Tell you the truth, I don't think much is going to happen there. It's kind of like all the news that's been over the last couple of weeks about credit reports and credit this and credit that, and 2 scores, 3 scores, Vantage, and so forth. There wasn't a lot, frankly, that came out of Nashville. The credit news was a little bit of news, but that's going to take years to unfurl and so on. So I think there was a lot of hubbub, and then it's kind of died down. with regard to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and the lawsuit, that's been going for years, 10 years maybe, I don't know, at least 5. And there really isn't much that's going on there. You know, if you got a little extra cash, sure, buy, you know, 1,000 shares of Fannie Mae and 1,000 shares of Freddie Mac, and that'll set you back about $2,000 or $4,000 or something, just in case. But I don't think anybody expects much out of that lawsuit.
Also in the news, National Association of Realtors released their annual homebuyer profile report. And not surprisingly, over the last year, first-time home buyers only made up 26% of home sales, which is the lowest share ever for first-time home buyers. Not surprisingly, given the climate. A typical first-time buyer was 36 years old this year from 33. 10% of homes were bought by unmarried couples, by far the highest of that number. Some trends that were emerging there, but 88% of buyers, white Caucasian. So, I mean, again, I think this really, you know, we kind of had already a minority homeownership gap problem in America, and you know, all the things that have happened this last year have exacerbated it a little bit. But anything in the NAI report that caught your eye?
No, I read the report actually, or a big chunk of it. I think it's very interesting. But you're right. It continues to be you know, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. There's huge gaps. Continues to be huge gaps with underserved markets, minority ownership, and so forth. And really, you know, to try to overcome that, I know a lot of lenders are doing what they can. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac are doing what they can. It's tough right now. It's a tough environment. And so, yeah, obviously I hope those numbers improve, but I think it behooves every lender to understand what's going on in their market and, you know, try to shoot for certain goals, but it's tough sometimes, but it's good to know what's going on out there. I think the National Association of Realtor report did a good job of summing that up.
Some stuff in the chat. Shameless plug, our 12 days at TMC event is coming up. We have so much fun with that. You talk about sharpening your saw. Put on about 30 or 40 sessions over the course of 3 weeks that are open to all the employees of all our member companies that register. Question, let's see, 2-1
what if somebody, you know, what if my you know, neighbor wanted to tune in and they're not a member of TMC? What happens then?
Well, if they're your neighbor, they might get a special exception. But you know, if they're just like Joe Blow's neighbor, I mean, it's for our members.
Okay.
You know,
All right,
have lender member companies that are close to joining TMC that say, hey, you let me preview it, and we'll let them do that because they always join after it. So if there's any prospective TMC lender members out there that want a freebie to 12 days, just get a hold of me. So
yeah, good to know.
And what else did we have in the news? Not much else really. One positive note in the jobs report today that I wanted to mention, because we try to stay positive here. There's not been a lot of positive news this year. The jobs report this month, but also in previous months, one very positive thing from this pandemic: employment for people with disabilities is up like 100. It's up huge because of the work from home, because of companies having more inclusive hiring policies. And I don't know, I just thought that was something that I caught like in the back details of reading through the jobs report this morning, and I thought that was a positive development that I wanted to mention. So
congratulations on mentioning it. Your grasp of government reports and the news that comes out is truly never ceases to amaze me. I sailed right over that American with Disabilities employment data. So
that's what I love about the rundown. It forces me to stay up on all the news. So yeah. But I know we don't, we're going to keep it a little shorter this week, just about out of time. Rob, anything else you have for the audience, or any notable weekend plans?
I'm going to we'll swing the camera around. I'm going to you know, do what I can to you know, drink a lot and eat a lot here in Chicago. It's a pretty cool place. Yeah, no big plans per se. Next week I go to the Atlanta Mortgage Bankers, speak at a luncheon there, so I'm looking forward to that. What about you? Are you watching the World Series, or is baseball dead to you now?
No, this World Series has really sucked me back in because it's been compelling. So a lot of compelling, all the games have been excellent. So I'll be watching that. I'll be hopefully starting to get the Christmas decorations up and to prepare my backyard and front yard for the hell that ensues in Cleveland. So
Do you set up like gnomes, like Christmas gnomes in the front yard, like a big Santa Claus on the roof?
even worse, those annoying like Walmart blow-ups. So yeah.
Like they have outside used car dealerships, like.
Yeah, exactly like that. Yeah. So you get your blow up decorations at Walmart and not your mortgages though.
What's your address there in Twinsburg?
It's unlisted. Yeah.
It's on the tour. Like Twinsburg has a tour of
You know, we keep a low profile because my dog has bit like several delivery people. So yeah.
I remember that.
Low profile with all the huge inflatables outside. So
All right.
excellent. Well, to our attendees, thanks as always for ending your week with us. We're here every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern with the Rundown with Rob and Rich, and also available on YouTube on demand after the live version and on podcast where the majority of you listen. So you podcast people, you know, the live, and we got up to like about 300 today. But get more you podcast people on live Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Go to mortgagecollaborative.com. You can register. So. But
yeah, I'll close off with a joke here, Rich. That's sweeping Wisconsin, and that is, what do you call somebody from Wisconsin who talks too much? A Milwaukee talkie. So I think we should incorporate more cutting edge humor like that into our show.
The only team in the NBA with a better record than the Cavs, Milwaukee. So just good segue to
all right.
Closing point. So
all
right, everybody, have a great weekend. Take care, Rob.